Hi everyone. Today we are going to talk more about what you've been reading about this week in class, rhetorical analysis. A rhetorical analysis examines how and how well an argument is made. We conduct rhetorical analyses for many reasons. For one, they allow us to better understand whether or not we should agree with something. They also help us learn what works and doesn't work when constructing arguments, which will help us better write arguments ourselves. A rhetorical analysis seeks to answer three main questions. What is the argument a text is making? How is the text making that argument? And is that argument effective? Any text can be analyzed, and the term text can be quite broad. You can analyze something with a straightforward argument, like a letter to the editor in a newspaper, or something with a more vague or hidden argument, like a speech given by a presidential candidate. Rhetoricians even analyze things like the way a room is designed. So let's practice. You've read a lot about rhetorical analysis this week and last. Let's put your knowledge to work. We'll start with this example. This is a real print advertisement created by Heinz. Our first step is to try to determine what we think the argument is. Sometimes, a text can have more than one argument. For example, clearly, an advertisement's main argument is that you should purchase the product being advertised, in this case, Heinz ketchup. However, that argument is made by employing other, more subtle arguments. For example, this particular advertisement is also arguing that Heinz is a fresh food akin to tomatoes, or at least that you should consider it one. Let's focus on that argument. How is it being made? First, we need to determine who the audience is. It is important to try to be as specific as possible here. This means that you can't just say people who read magazines or even people who read the magazine that this advertisement appears in. You want to determine who the text was created for. That way, you can effectively evaluate whether or not the argument works. For example, this advertisement seems to be targeting people who are concerned about health, the ingredients in their food, and maybe even organic or natural products. Sometimes, more than one audience exists. To determine this, we can break audience down into three categories: implied, intended, and real. The implied audience is who the text says it is attempting to appeal to. The intended audience is who the text really is targeting, and the real audience is who the text actually reaches. For this advertisement, it seems that the implied and intended audience are the same. However, this isn't always the case. Think, for example, of Cosmopolitan magazine. The publishing company likely claims that they only target women who are older than 18 due to the content of the magazine. However, they may actually work to appeal to younger women. In that example, the implied audience would be women over the age of 18, but the intended audience would be something more like women over the age of 13. The real audience depends a good deal on where the advertisement ends up. In this case, the real audience of the Heinz ad would be the people who meet our earlier description, but who also purchase and read the magazine the ad appears in. Once we have an idea of who our audience is, we can look at the rhetorical appeals used. Let's start with ethos. Remember, ethos is the appeal to credibility. The advertisement uses ethos in several ways. For example, the name Heinz, which is a well-known brand, shows up twice. This brand name alone lends credibility to the text. Another example of ethos in this advertisement is the phrase, "No one grows ketchup like Heinz." This phrase makes a clear claim about the credibility of the product. Next, let's look at pathos. Remember, pathos is the appeal to emotion. One powerful emotion present here is the desire to be healthy, take care of yourself or your family, caring about yourself and your family, etc. This is implied to us with the words grown and in the picture of the tomato. Finally, let's look at logos. Remember, logos is the appeal to logic. Although the advertisement does not include facts or statistics, it does attempt to make a logical argument. For example, it is making a logical association between a ripe vegetable and ketchup. When conducting a complete rhetorical analysis, it is important to look at every element of the text. What we've just gone over are only a few examples. You should look at everything from color choice. For example, why did the advertisement use so much red? What appeals are present there? And other elements such as font, graphics, etc. You should evaluate both the verbal strategies, what's written, and the visual strategies, the other elements you see in the text. Once you've thoroughly analyzed your text, it is time to answer the final question: is the argument effective? Now, although this does require you to include some opinion, this element of the analysis is still rooted in research. You should use what you've found during your analysis to answer this question. It is important to keep in mind that the question is not, do you like the text, or is the text effective for you? This is the case because you may not fall into the intended audience. The question you are attempting to answer is, does this argument effectively reach its intended audience? So, if the argument we are evaluating is, Heinz is a healthy, natural food that you should purchase, and the audience is people who care about what they put in their bodies, then we are determining if this advertisement effectively makes that claim to that audience. Our answers to that question might vary. On one hand, the visual in this advertisement is quite powerful. It is clear and creative and certainly draws a clear connection between a healthy-looking tomato and a bottle of Heinz ketchup. For that reason, you might choose to argue that this advertisement is effective. However, someone else might argue that it is not, because those who are truly health conscious would know that, despite the image, ketchup contains much more than just ripe, healthy tomatoes. Either of those evaluations, or a combination of the two, are valid. When writing a rhetorical analysis, you just need to make sure that you are clearly supporting your claims. This week, you will practice conducting your own rhetorical analysis. Rhetorical analysis can be tricky and even overwhelming, especially if you've never encountered it before. Don't hesitate to contact me with questions, and don't worry too much if you are still a little unsure about the concept of rhetorical analysis. Practice this week and work to gain some experience. I promise it will get easier. Have a great week.